Welcome in to Greenville Grit. This is Greenville Residents in Touch with your hosts, Terry Williams and Michael Overton. This is the show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group. And now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
And I'm back this week, Terry.
Yes, you are.
Michael Overton.
We missed you.
Thank you. It was a wonderful vacation in Blowing Rock, North Carolina.
Great.
Beautiful part of our state, and it was nice to get away. And we have a great guest on tonight,
Yes,
Chief
we
Hassan
do.
Aiden. This is the fourth or fifth time you've been on with us.
Hello, I love it.
Well,
Anytime.
that's a
Appreciate
good
you
thing.
coming.
That's
We
a good
do.
thing. Before we get into the show, we are going to have to, as usual, thank our sponsors.
That's right.
The big news is Ribeyes called me, and they want to continue the 25% discount.
That's awesome. That is
So
great.
if you like a big steak like I do, and they've got pork chops, chicken, and other things, and a wonderful
Wonderful salad bar. I keep pushing the salad
As
bar.
long
It's great.
as you mention Greenville Grit, you get a 25% discount. I'm not sure if you knew that.
So take your
Wow.
wife and go out to eat dinner.
Absolutely.
Also got to thank Greenville Toyota. If you need a new Toyota or Scion vehicle or a new used car, need your car service, please go see Craig Goss and the Greenville Toyota team at 321-3000 or Memorial Drive across from Fresh Market.
Great.
Also the Overton Group.
Overton Group. Thank you,
Real
Michael.
estate and property management professionals with an office here and in Newbern. And if you need business brokerage, commercial sales, leasing, residential sales, or property management needs, please give us a call or look us up on the web at ovtgroup.com. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back in 2 minutes and get into it with Chief Aiden and all of the things going on with the Greenville Police Department. See you back in 2.
Eastern Carolina.
Welcome back, Greenville Grit. Tonight we have our special guest, Chief Aiden. We appreciate so much you coming on and keeping us updated with what's going on in your department and how you're continuing to defend our city.
Thanks for
So
having me.
we wanted to just open up the conversation with you tonight for whatever you wanted to discuss, but we do know that in the paper this week, there was a great article concerning the new DNA lab. So I thought maybe we just open up the conversation to you, let you talk about that and talk about, what's going on and how the DNA lab is benefiting us.
I think that's a great way to start off
Yeah.
because that is a piece of great news, not only for us as a department, but for us as a city. This lab, the CAFTA, so the Center for Advanced Forensics DNA Analysis, they were sort of shopping around the research triangle, which a lot of people that are drawn to North Carolina might consider starting there because of the
Right.
reputation. But then they expanded their search and connected with Wanda Uhas from the Pitt County Development. And Wanda is just fantastic. Anyone who's ever met her understands that her depth of knowledge about the topic of economic development and her understanding of the dynamics here. So she linked us up with the CEO of the center, and immediately I knew that this would be a winning combination. And I think they felt the same way.
Right.
We wanted to be a police department that would help them get started, submit cold case and new case information and DNA, because they do both. They don't just take your DNA. They actually work through what the likelihood of extracting a profile might be. So they're a lot more than just send it in and get a result out. They do a pre-screen to see whether they can actually serve you, which is wonderful
Right.
if you're going to spend money. So then they located here. And
That's great.
they've brought in a number of well-paying jobs.
Are they up and running yet?
Oh yes,
Yes.
All right.
They've been up and running for close to a year now, and they've basically have been developing their brand, their client base. They serve 160 North Carolina law enforcement agencies
Wow.
now in the consortium that they've built. And obviously it started with us. We were the first, and the first case that was resolved through that DNA profile was a difficult case. It was a 14-year-old heist, essentially, of a Belks employee coming out with a money bag. 2 armed gunmen went up, and they were wearing masks, took the money. So this was February of 2000. And here we are. We picked him up 2 weeks ago in D.C.
Whoa.
Oh, I think
and
that's awesome.
brought him back. We're
How about that?
looking for the other suspect. We've got him pinpointed
Mm-hmm.
in another state. And he'll be
All
back in
because
Greenville
in this
soon.
lab had a lot to do with that.
The lab had everything to do with it. We sent them the mask,
Mm-hmm.
and with DNA, it doesn't go away. So if you have a mask, there's saliva,
Right.
there might be some hair
But
fibers.
how are they able to get the man? We won't get too much in this case, but
The
now
mask
I'm
was
intrigued.
left in the getaway. The mask was left laying
So
there.
it was collected as evidence.
It was collected as evidence, and the detectives at the time tried to submit it to the SBI lab, the State Bureau of Investigation, and there's a policy that if you because of the volume of evidence that's coming in from all of these agencies and sheriff's offices in the state, this is not a criticism. This is just a numbers
Right, it
perspective.
just is
All
what
of that
it
is
is.
going into one lab, so it's clear that there are going to be backups. They can't process it fast
Right.
enough. So it's not a matter of efficiency; it's a matter of evidence.
Wow.
And so the lab at the time had a policy that if you didn't have a known suspect, they were not going to process it. So that case very quickly became a cold case.
Right.
Enter, the CAFTA lab, and we submitted it, and in 3 weeks we had our profile.
And I'm assuming this is a private group, Terry. I don't know much about
I
it.
don't know
but
a whole
is
lot
it a
about it
private
either,
group
but-
or is it public? I'm
It's
assuming
private.
Private, and I guess does the state allow a certain number of funds, or the city allow a certain amount of funds to pay them to do these DNA analysis?
The way that I fund it is through seized drug money.
Okay.
And right now we have a funding agreement where we're not paying full price
Right.
for that.
Right.
They are helping us, we're helping them. So we have an arrangement that essentially we pay for solutions and equipment, but it's not what someone would pay if they submitted.
So
a
how
case.
many labs might they have in our state? Do we even know how many of these
They have
exist?
there's one like this.
Okay.
There's a few other labs that help people build local DNA databases, but there's a big distinction because with a local DNA database, if we had that here and we had submitted our mask, all they would have would be local samples. They wouldn't have access to CODIS, which CODIS is the FBI's national database.
Okay.
Access to CODIS was negotiated very, very carefully through CAFTA and the State Bureau of Investigation and the FBI, and they granted access to them. So that's how we were able to find a profile out of D.C.
That's wonderful.
that is
I mean, just to
very
have that here
interesting.
in Greenville, that is really cool.
It's a big win for us, and I thought that the Reflector did a great job with that story, but I just can't stop talking
Right.
enough about it because we're continuously submitting evidence, and we've had to retrain our officers to. I'll give you an example. The old way that we collected evidence, if there was, and that's through fingerprints primarily, if there was if moisture or if it was raining and it was a wet substance, you couldn't even attempt to dust that. Now, the oil's in our hands and humans,
Right.
that's actually a favorable condition that you can just swab
Wow.
and you've got that DNA. And that DNA can tell you lots of things. It can tell you sex of the offender, what drugs they're on, all sorts of different things.
Right.
In addition to just the profile. So it's the science is just jumping by leaps and bounds. It's incredible and it's awesome.
So having this lab obviously is great for the citizens, it's great for your department, but I would see it as so favorable for the victims because it may allow us to have faster results to either catch the criminals or prosecute them.
Absolutely. Waiting 18 months to 2 years
Right.
to 3 years, you get a sense that your case may not be important.
Right.
Although it's not the justice system, it just is, again, a volume issue. 3 weeks, game changer.
Exactly. It really is. I mean, that's phenomenal, really, when you
Well,
think about it.
and I think that could be a bridge to our next subject. I think, and I have been out of town, so I don't know all the news,
That's
but I
okay.
know that there have been a few shootings recently.
Yes.
Can you tell us what's going on with those?
Yes. In the last about 72 hours, we've had 4 shootings. And we have a suspect. We have evidence that will be submitted to the lab, to this lab, and we should have that wrapped up. I would say that It is not random. I know I say that a lot,
Right.
and that's not to imply that it wasn't a dangerous situation, because in
Right.
one of the shootings there was a child in the house when bullets were fired into the house. So that is about as dangerous as you can
Right.
get. We are not tolerating this behavior, and we've got our resources all over it.
Do
Our
they
gang
think
unit and major
the four
crimes.
that was all one shooter in the four, or are we talking about four completely
was
separate?
related.
No, they're tied together.
Tied together.
At least 3 of them are tied together, and there may be some ties to the 4th.
Which
So-
is a lot of time what we see, and even
Yes.
convenience store robberies or things like that,
a lot of
or
the same people
or,
over
you
and
know,
over.
or car thefts or whatever, car break-ins. It's usually a lot of the same person.
and in the same areas. In
right.
Greenville, I pay attention to a lot of data. And every year I have a particular data set that I think is really important prepared. I need to do, because now we've got 2013 fully vetted, I need to do 2013s. But in 2012, Greenville's crime concentration, 95% of all of our crimes occurred in 2% of our city blocks.
Right.
So that is very favorable for the police,
Right.
because you can really map out your hotspots, and you can begin your deployment in that 2%. If it was 5, which is more typical, that's still pretty good. You get to 10, and you have a really sort of difficult situation in trying to control your
Right.
crime. So being at 2%, and hopefully we're still there. I think we are.
Right.
That's a tremendous advantage to us. And that's not a statistic you hear very much,
Right. No.
but it is a really good one to pay attention to in terms of how safe you are.
And that crime detail is really your violent crime. Is that what you're referring
It
to?
is, but the ones that we map out are the big 7, which are Part 1 crimes, which we report to the FBI. That's homicide, sexual assault, aggravated assault, robbery, burglary, theft, and auto theft.
Okay.
So those are that's what we map, and that's what we track. We also track, the what's called Part 2. Those are more the nuisance, and those amazingly seem to sort of overlap with the Part 1 areas.
Right.
There are some other areas, such as some homeless camps and different areas that might pop up in number 2s. But generally, if you take care of your number 1, your Part 1 crimes, you're also taking
Right.
you're decreasing.
So just
the
to clarify, you said 95% of, I would say, Part 1 crimes
Part 1 crimes.
or take place in a 2%
2% of the
Greenville's total
population.
city blocks?
Yes,
That's amazing.
it is amazing.
Wow.
Well, and that's frustrating. I mean, and that's why we do appreciate what you're doing, and we want to get in talking about focused deterrence here in a few minutes. But I spoke with someone yesterday. She's been here since the 1970s. She said, I'm ready to get out of Greenville. I said, why? She said, well, it's just every time I turn the TV on, it's crime. There's shootings and murders and everything. And I think it still goes back to that fight that you're fighting and the fight that we want to really
Right.
continue to take on. Is there's an opinion by so many that this is such a bad place, but if you really start looking at the crime numbers, there are
It's one
several
of the
cities that
safest.
most people would never.
It's one of the safest in our
Consider.
area.
But you have 2 TV
Yeah.
stations and a newspaper, and of course, what's close by is going to get reflected. But
That's right.
I hate to say it's nice to hear that it's so concentrated. I'm sure it makes your life easier, but hopefully because of that, we can have quicker results. But can you give us any update on crime statistics that have come out? Have the 2013 numbers come out yet? I thought they were coming
No.
out June, July, but
They'll be out probably in August.
Okay.
The finalized numbers. I'm anticipating that we're probably going to be slightly up, and that's due to larcenies. So, that's a little disappointing, but
Right.
I'm going to wait and see
Sure.
how that actually comes out and shakes out. We are paying attention to changing businesses. We do have 2 large Walmarts, and the new Walmart will have been in existence for a significant amount of time, and we are tracking the thefts that are occurring out there, because that may very well account for that small percentage increase.
There was also another story about, I don't know what the terminology is, but it had to do with your crash controls or our
DDAX.
wrecks or something. I
Yes.
didn't remember exactly, but I thought you might like to talk a little bit about that, because there were a couple of areas of concentration, maybe Memorial Drive and
Memorial and Greenville
Greenville.
and Greenville and 10th are
That's
2
right.
DDAX areas. We have some unofficial
what
ones.
is DDAX?
What does that
Help me
mean?
out.
DDAX is data-driven approaches to crash or to crime and traffic safety.
Okay.
So DDAX, and it's a federal program that basically comes out and it teaches departments how to map crime and crashes and where they overlay and how to deploy in those areas.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting way to do business. And we've got a significant traffic safety unit, so they're the primaries that are dealing with our two DDAX areas.
And those areas are which ones again?
So there's 10th and the Boulevard and Greenville Boulevard, and then Memorial and the Boulevard.
So are they targeted because they're the highest concentration of where
Of crashes.
this crash happens or these crashes
But
happen?
there's also concentrations of crime,
in those
right
areas,
there
yeah.
in the neighboring
I see. Areas or
neighborhoods.
whatever.
And so it's a really smart evidence-based approach. And so far this year, we have a 5% reduction in crashes,
Right, I heard that.
which is really great. Crashes were very, very high here. They were, it's a big part of, when you talk about public safety, everyone talks about crime, but it's not just crime. So
Right.
crime is a big piece of it, but pedestrian and vehicle and traffic safety are equal
Right,
big pieces.
exactly.
For many, many people, they're actually more significant.
Well, how come we haven't tried to look at Arlington Boulevard, especially from Red Banks Road to Fire Tower Road, and get that reduced to a 35-mile-per-hour zone? There's a lot of traffic, a lot of people pulling in and out of that, and I believe that's a city street.
Yeah, and what happens when you
It
cross
is.
over Red Banks, all of a sudden it's 35,
And
in front
people
of
are still
Arlington
going
Village, and they're
50.
still flying through that light at 45, which brings me to another question.
Well,
I saw
well,
one
let me
yesterday.
answer that
I
one
know about
So let me
these.
just answer it. Let me answer
Yeah.
that piece first. So we've paid a lot of attention. Out of our top 10 crash areas, 7 of them, this is just crashes, 7 of them are along Arlington Boulevard. So it's something that we've looked at over the last year. We've worked with our traffic engineers, and we continue to work with our traffic engineers on basically impacting that roadway and trying to reduce the speeds through environmental changes to the design. Very expensive. We're getting ready to really redo a bunch of our city streets through Public Works. So that's going to give us an opportunity to maybe make some changes there. The speed limit is something that I think many of our speed limits are too high. Many of them we can't do anything about. They're 45 in some areas what I consider to be residential areas, and it's too fast. Because even if someone says, well, I'm just going 5 over, that means they're doing 50
Right.
in a residential area. So it concerns me greatly. Arlington is one that we can do something about, and we're working on it.
Okay.
The
I'll say
others,
that's not that expensive. Get 4 or 5 signs, bolt them
Yeah.
up there, and we're done.
the signs,
Well,
yes.
I'll go out there one night with you when nobody's looking.
could.
We'll post
We'll
3s over
change
the
it.
board.
Change them to 25.
No, I'm not going to agree to that now.
No, but even Greenville Boulevard, as busy as it is, really shouldn't be 45 when you think about
Yeah,
it.
I
Should not
agree.
be 45.
Well, we don't have but 3 or 4 minutes for our next break. But do you want to talk
Okay.
about focused deterrence? I think you've got a first meeting tonight.
We got our first call in tonight. So focused deterrence, just to recap, is a strategy that we've done. We've adopted High Point, North Carolina strategy in, again, data-driven, but finding our most prolific violent offenders and bringing them in. And 8 of them will be sitting in 8 chairs in front of us tonight.
Wow.
It'll be myself, the U.S. Attorney out of Raleigh, our DA, Kim Robb, and all of the police chiefs and the sheriff from Pitt County. Our federal partners will also be there. We're going to do this in council chambers, so we will be on the dais looking at our offenders, and we're making them a promise. If they don't stop shooting people, robbing people,
Right.
assaulting people, which is basically urban terrorism, we are going to put them in federal prison, period.
Wow.
There will be no more plea agreements. There will be, and this is the message that's going to be delivered to them from the whole law enforcement family. No fragmentation.
Right.
You
So
can't
you've
run
been
to
able to get
Aiden.
the
You
other
can't run to
towns
Grifton.
involved with this also?
Who's that?
I mean, Aiden and Grifton and all those areas have
They
all
will.
bought into this, and everyone's
We did our
board.
dry run yesterday. They were all at the table, and this is a commitment that we've all agreed upon. Greenville, we built the infrastructure, but we built it county for the whole county,
Right.
so that all the police departments could come in. If they have a prolific violent offender, they'll be sitting there.
Right.
So it is it's a great strategy
It's good to hear.
in letting them know we're not we're not taking it anymore.
Right.
So the community also will be there, and the community is going to tell these guys, we're not taking it anymore.
Right.
And then if they choose and agree to sign a contract with us and walk to the next door, we will have some training programs. We will have some assistance for them to help them make the transition.
So physically, the 8 violent offenders are going to be there.
They will be there. They're all
And
gang
what if they
members.
don't agree to sign the agreement?
They will be in prison, federal
Okay.
prison.
Wow. Well, that should
Okay.
make the communities, all of our communities in our whole county, feel better.
Yes.
Because everything that happens in Winterville and Ayden does affect us.
Absolutely.
In other places.
We're
around.
large. We're it's more than just Greenville.
Right,
It's
exactly.
the county, and criminals are zigzagging through. And it
Well, you
wouldn't-
think about how close Winterville and Ayden are to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to say almost one, but we are so close
close.
together now.
And the beauty of this program or of this strategy is also that once we put them in a database, it's a statewide database. So if they get stopped in Charlotte or get arrested for anything
Right.
anywhere in the state,
Federal prison.
they'll be gone.
It's good to hear.
They'll be gone.
Well, I think
good
that's
to
what
hear.
happens. It's not that we don't want people to have chances, but sometimes chances it's over.
This is their last chance.
That's right, exactly.
They've had, some of these folks have been arrested 30 times.
Now, these people that are still in jail now,
No,
or
they're,
these,
they're
okay.
out. They're out. So these are folks that could become victims of homicide.
High
B,
likelihood of that.
We saw one in June.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was going to be there tonight, and he was shot.
How about that?
Well, let's take our next and last commercial break.
All
We'll
right.
come back. We'll wrap up with about 4 or 5 minutes left and get into a couple of things, a nice National Night Out and a couple of other
Great.
items. See you
Okay,
back in 2
sounds
minutes.
good.
Excellent.
Welcome back. We've had a great conversation tonight with Chief Ayden and so much information and good positive information that our citizens need to know about. I know you all, we're going to talk about National Night Out, but before we discuss that, let's just talk about how your focus has to change in the next, say, few weeks with ECU coming back into play and Pitt Community College, starting classes. So what does that make for your workload right now?
Well, just this morning I was tweeting out, at Chief Ayden is my Twitter account,
Okay.
how I miss our students. I really do. In
Yeah.
the summertime when they're gone, it's almost like the city is missing something.
Right.
And
But we
so-
are 30,000.
We are, and I love them, and I can't wait to see them back.
Right.
And I get a lot of positive, because a lot of college students are, on Twitter and follow me on Twitter,
Right.
so we get a lot of news out to them. But, we've got some different levels of programs in place. Obviously, we work very closely with ECU Police.
Right.
But we have our Center City unit to take care of the uptown areas and to make sure that the kids, our students, are safe
Right.
and responsible. And we could do a whole other show on
I know,
that.
that's right.
But then we also have our code enforcement working with Public Works. So they're going to go around and make sure that move-in goes in effectively, and that we don't have piles of trash
Right,
and stuff,
exactly.
debris left out. So all of those things are things that they're known. We know that at certain times of the year, certain things happen.
That's right.
And so that's how we've planned. We have no plan to increase our staff.
Right.
But we want to use the staff that we've got out there in an effective way. So we do have an operational plan that'll take us into mid-September.
Right, okay.
A lot of that is also public awareness. Lots of new students. I mean, each year it seems like there's a record number of freshmen coming in. And we've got a publication, which is called Take Heed,
Okay.
that really goes through and it talks about everything that's important to them,
Okay.
from utilities to trash to parking to all sorts of different phone numbers that they can call for assistance.
That's great.
So that's our plan, and it's our second year, and it's been going well.
So tell us a little bit about National Night Out. I know you want to put a plug in for that.
Yes.
It's coming up next week, right?
It's going to be next Tuesday,
Tuesday night,
on August 5th. It is a wonderful. Last year was great. Last year we had 22 communities. This year we have 23 communities.
Wow.
So we've increased it by one.
Okay.
And we've put out some information on our Facebook page, or you can get us on Twitter at Greenville PD.
Okay.
And on Facebook, just do a search. But it's got all the information on there where these neighborhoods are. But please come out and join us. We love National Night Out. Basically, we partner with our city council, with our elected leadership, and they ride with myself and my commanders, and we take them to all the different events. So we show that we are a united front in keeping and increasing public safety in Greenville.
So if there isn't one in the direct neighborhood, then they can go to will there be one like at 5 Points or one at Town Common?
There's one at 5 Points.
5 Points.
So you
okay.
go to the Facebook page,
So-
you can find out.
Yeah,
You can.
find out.
The whole
Closest
list
one
is
to
there,
you.
and go and enjoy some food and good company and meet your officers.
Sounds great.
Well, Chief, thank you for being back on the show tonight. It's great always having you on, and we promise we're going to do that right around.
We gotta
with
do
you
it.
at
We
some
gotta do
point.
it. We're
We
ready.
do need to thank the sponsors again: Greenville Toyota, the Overton Group, and Ribeyes. Don't forget 25% discount if you mention Greenville Grit. You can also join with us on Friday night at 6:30, Saturday morning at 9:30, and until then, we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you for joining.